The stagecoach's wheels kicked up dust that swirled in the late afternoon sun as it rumbled toward Granite, Colorado, carrying Cecilia Porter, a woman whose unseeing eyes belied the courage it took to travel across the country, to marry a man she'd never met. Her fingers traced the worn edges of a letter in her lap, the last correspondence from Vincent Forester, the rancher who had agreed to take her as his bride despite her blindness, a fact she disclosed only after weeks of letters had passed between them. The year was 1878, and the promise of a new life in the West beckoned to many, including those who, like Cecilia, sought escape from the confines of their circumstances in the East. At 22, she had resigned herself to spinsterhood, until Vincent's advertisement in the matrimonial news had offered an unexpected chance at happiness. "Next stop, Granite," the driver called out, his voice carrying over the clatter of hooves and wheels. Cecilia's heart quickened. She smoothed her simple blue dress and adjusted the bonnet that shaded her face. Though she couldn't see herself, she knew her chestnut hair was pinned neatly, and she had been assured by her sister that she presented a pleasing appearance. But would it be enough for Vincent Forester? Would he honor his promise after meeting her in person? The stagecoach lurched to a stop, and Cecilia gripped the seat to steady herself as the door swung open. "Miss Porter," a deep voice inquired. "I'm Vincent Forester." "Mr. Forester," she acknowledged with a nod, turning toward his voice. "It is a pleasure to finally meet you." She extended her hand slightly, waiting. There was a brief pause before rough, calloused fingers enveloped hers. "The pleasure is mine, Miss Porter. Welcome to Granite." Vincent helped her from the coach, and she stepped onto the dusty street with caution. The sounds of the frontier town surrounded her, horses nickering, men calling to one another, the clinking of spurs and the distant piano from what must be a saloon. "Your bags, miss?" the stagecoach driver asked. "I'll take them," Vincent answered. "Just the 2 trunks, right?" "Yes," Cecilia confirmed. "That's all I have." She felt Vincent's steady hand on her elbow. "The town's not much to look at," he said, then faltered. "I mean, it's all right, Mr. Forester," she said with a small smile. "I understand what you meant. Call me Vincent, please." His voice softened. "And I reckon we should get you settled. We'll head to Mrs. Holloway's boarding house for tonight. I thought you might want a proper rest before the wedding." Cecilia nodded gratefully. "Thank you, that's very considerate." As they walked, Cecilia could sense Vincent's uncertainty. She had experienced it many times. People didn't know how to act around her, what to say, how to help without offending. "You can describe things to me," she offered. "I'd like to know what Granite is like." Vincent cleared his throat. "Well, it's a small town, built along a single main street with a few side streets branching off. The buildings are mostly wood, some with false fronts trying to look grander than they are. There's the general store, that's where I get supplies for the ranch, and across from it is the post office. The saloon's at the end of the street, and next to it is the sheriff's office." As he spoke, Cecilia tried to picture the town in her mind. She had been blind since a bout of scarlet fever when she was 12, so she remembered what buildings looked like, what colors were. Vincent's deep voice painted the scene for her, and she found herself smiling. "What about your ranch?" she asked. "It's about 5 miles outside of town," he replied. "Not as big as some, but it's good land. I've got a decent herd of cattle, and the house is solid. Built it myself after I came out west 5 years ago." "From where?" "Pennsylvania. My father was a blacksmith, but I always wanted more space. The East was getting too crowded for my taste." They reached the boarding house, and Vincent guided her up the steps. The door opened before they reached it. "You must be Miss Porter," a woman exclaimed warmly. "I'm Martha Holloway. Vincent told me you'd be arriving today." "Thank you for having me, Mrs. Holloway," Cecilia said, extending her hand. Now you come right in and rest, Mrs. Holloway said, taking Cecilia's arm. I've got a nice room ready for you and supper will be at 6 sharp. Vincent cleared his throat again. I'll bring your trunks up and then I should see to my horse and get back to the ranch. There's work to be done before tomorrow. Tomorrow? Cecilia asked. The wedding, he said softly. If you're still willing. Cecilia nodded. I am Mr. Forester, Vincent. I keep my promises. As do I, he replied. I'll come for you at 10 in the morning. Preacher Williams is expecting us. After Vincent had brought her trunks up and bid her goodbye, Mrs. Holloway showed Cecilia to her room. The older woman helped her unpack essentials and chattered about the town. Vincent Forester is a good man, Mrs. Holloway said as she hung up Cecilia's dresses. Keeps to himself mostly, but he's honest and hardworking. Some thought he was odd for sending away for a bride, but I told them it's not easy finding a suitable woman out here. Did he tell you about me? Cecilia asked hesitantly. About my condition, he did, Mrs. Holloway confirmed. Said it didn't matter to him. Said he figured a woman brave enough to come all this way, knowing no one, was the kind of woman he wanted as a wife. Cecilia felt a warmth spread through her chest. Perhaps this arrangement would work after all. The next morning, Cecilia dressed with care in her best dress, a light cream with delicate embroidery that her sister had helped her select. Mrs. Holloway arranged her hair, securing it with pins topped with small fabric flowers. You look beautiful, my dear, Mrs. Holloway assured her. Vincent will be a fortunate man indeed. At precisely 10 o'clock, there was a knock at the door. Cecilia's heart fluttered nervously as Mrs. Holloway went to answer it. Good morning, Vincent, Mrs. Holloway greeted. Don't you look handsome? Come in, come in. Your bride is ready. Cecilia stood in the parlor, her hands clasped before her. She heard Vincent's footsteps halt, and for a moment there was silence. Miss Porter, he finally said, his voice oddly strained. You look lovely. Thank you, she replied. I hope I haven't kept you waiting. Not at all. He moved closer, and she could smell soap and something distinctly masculine, leather perhaps, and the open air. I brought something for you. He took her hand and placed something soft in it. It's not much, just a small bouquet, wildflowers from the meadow near my ranch. Cecilia brought the flowers to her nose and inhaled their sweet fragrance. They're perfect, thank you. The ceremony at Preacher Williams's small church was brief and simple. Besides the preacher and his wife, only Mrs. Holloway and the town sheriff, a man named Daniel Thompson, attended as witnesses. Cecilia repeated her vows clearly, promising to be a faithful wife to Vincent Forester, a man she barely knew but to whom she was now bound. You may kiss the bride, Preacher Williams announced. Vincent's hand gently touched her cheek, guiding her face up toward his. His lips were warm and soft against hers, the kiss brief but tender. Mrs. Forester, he said quietly, and Cecilia felt a shiver at her new name. After accepting congratulations from the small group, Vincent led her outside where a wagon waited. I thought we'd have lunch at the hotel before heading to the ranch, he suggested. Give you a chance to meet a few of the townspeople. That sounds nice, Cecilia agreed, though her stomach fluttered with nerves at the prospect of meeting strangers. The hotel dining room was busier than Cecilia had expected. Vincent guided her to a table, describing the layout of the room and warning her about a step near the entrance. As they ate, several people stopped by to introduce themselves and offer congratulations. Vincent's been a bachelor too long, said the hotel owner, Mr. Peterson. It's good to see him with a fine woman at last. Though we're all dying to know how he convinced such a pretty thing to come all this way, added a woman who introduced herself as the dressmaker's wife. Cecilia smiled politely at each intrusion, but she could sense Vincent's discomfort growing. After the meal, he seemed relieved to escort her out to the wagon. "Sorry about that," he said as he helped her onto the seat. "People here can be nosy." "It's all right," she assured him. "They're curious. I would be too." The journey to the ranch took nearly an hour. As they traveled, Vincent began describing the landscape around them. "We're passing through a valley now," he said. "Hills rise up on either side, covered with pine trees. The grass here is good for grazing, turns a golden color in the late summer. Right now, it's still green from the spring rains." Cecilia listened, building the image in her mind. "What about the sky?" she asked. "The sky?" Vincent sounded surprised by the question. "It's blue, the clearest blue you can imagine. A few white clouds floating high up. Out here, the sky seems bigger somehow, stretches farther than back east." "I remember blue," Cecilia said softly. "It was always my favorite color." Vincent was quiet for a moment. "Then I'll describe every blue thing I see to you," he finally said, his voice gentle. "The sky, the wildflowers in spring, the way the mountains look in the distance." Tears pricked at Cecilia's eyes, and she turned her face away, not wanting him to see her emotion. No one had ever offered such a thing before. As the wagon bumped along the trail, Vincent continued his descriptions. "We're coming up on my land now. There's a creek that runs along the property. You can probably hear it. It never dries up, even in the hottest summers. That's what made this place valuable." Cecilia did hear it, the gentle burble of flowing water. "It sounds peaceful." "It is. The house is just ahead. It's not fancy, mind you. 2 stories, painted white though the paint's peeling some now. Got a porch that wraps around the front and one side. I built it thinking someday I'd have a family to fill it." The wagon slowed and then stopped. Vincent jumped down and came around to help Cecilia. "Watch your step," he said, placing his hands on her waist and lifting her down. His touch was firm but respectful, and he quickly released her once her feet were on solid ground. "Would you like to see?" He stopped himself. "I mean, would you like me to show you the house?" Cecilia smiled at his awkwardness. "Yes, I would." He took her arm and guided her carefully up 3 steps onto the porch. "The boards are solid, but they creak some. I'll fix that this summer," he promised. Inside, the house smelled of wood and something cooking. "Mrs. Holloway sent one of her stews with us," Vincent explained. "It's keeping warm on the stove." He led her through the house, room by room, describing the furnishings and layout. The main floor had a kitchen with a large wood stove, a dining area, and a parlor with a stone fireplace. Upstairs were 3 bedrooms, the master bedroom, a smaller guest room, and what Vincent hesitantly called a room for the future. "It's not much compared to what you might be used to," he said as they returned to the kitchen. "It's more than enough," Cecilia assured him. "It sounds like a lovely home." They ate Mrs. Holloway's stew at the kitchen table, and Vincent told her more about the ranch, how many cattle he had, the 2 horses in the stable, the vegetable garden he'd started but admitted was rather neglected. "I could help with the garden," Cecilia offered. "I've always enjoyed growing things. I can tell by touch when vegetables are ripe." Vincent was silent for so long that Cecilia wondered if she'd said something wrong. "I didn't expect that," he finally said. "I figured you'd need help with everything, but you want to help me instead." "I'm blind, not helpless," she replied, trying to keep the defensiveness from her tone. "I can cook and clean and sew. I just need to learn where everything is." "Of course," he said quickly. "I didn't mean to imply," he sighed. "I'm not good with words, Cecilia. But I want you to know that I meant what I wrote in my letters. I'll try to be a good husband to you." The sincerity in his voice touched her. "And I'll try to be a good wife." That night, Cecilia lay in the master bedroom alone. Vincent had insisted on taking the guest room, saying he wanted to give her time to adjust to her new home. She was grateful for his consideration. even as she wondered what kind of marriage theirs would be. They were strangers, bound by vows but not yet by any deeper connection. As she drifted to sleep, she could hear Vincent moving about in the other room and the occasional creak of the house settling. Strange sounds compared to the bustling city she'd left behind, but somehow comforting in their quiet rhythm. The following days established a pattern. Vincent rose before dawn to tend to the cattle and other ranch work, while Cecilia learned to navigate the house. He had placed a rope along the wall between the kitchen and the parlor to guide her, and he made sure to keep furniture in the same places so she wouldn't trip. During meals, Vincent would describe his morning work or tell her news from town when he went in for supplies. Cecilia found herself looking forward to these conversations, to the sound of his voice and his increasingly detailed descriptions of the world around them. A week after the wedding, Vincent came in from the barn earlier than usual. "I thought I might show you around the property today," he said as they ate breakfast. "If you'd like." "I would love that," Cecilia replied eagerly. Vincent helped her into the wagon, and they set off at a leisurely pace. The June sun was warm but not yet hot, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of wildflowers and grass. "There's a meadow just beyond the creek," Vincent said as they rode. "It's full of flowers right now, yellow, purple, and these little blue ones that grow close to the ground. They remind me of your eyes." Cecilia turned toward him, surprised. "My eyes?" "They're blue," he said softly, "like the sky just before dusk when it's deep but still bright." No one had described her eyes to her in years. "Thank you," she whispered. The wagon stopped and Vincent helped her down. "The creek's just ahead. Can you hear it?" She nodded, and he led her forward carefully until she could feel the cool spray on her face. "There's a flat rock here where you can sit," he said, guiding her hand to it. Cecilia sat, trailing her fingers in the cold, clear water. Vincent settled beside her, not touching but close enough that she could feel his presence. "What does the ranch look like from here?" she asked. "Well, the house is behind us, up on that small rise. From here, you can see the whole valley stretching east. The cattle are grazing in the lower pasture, about 30 head altogether. The forest begins about a half-mile to the north, and beyond that, you can just make out the mountains." "And what's that sound?" Cecilia asked, turning her head toward a trilling noise. "That's a meadowlark. Pretty little bird with a yellow breast and the sweetest song you'll ever hear." They sat in companionable silence for a while, listening to the creek and the birds. Then Vincent cleared his throat. "Cecilia, I've been thinking. We don't really know each other yet, and this marriage, well, it was arranged through letters. I want you to know that I don't expect. That is, I won't press you for." He trailed off, clearly uncomfortable. Cecilia felt her cheeks warm as she understood his meaning. "You've been very considerate, Vincent, more than I could have hoped for. I just want you to be comfortable here," he said earnestly, "to feel at home." "I'm beginning to," she admitted. "Thanks to you." In the days that followed, Cecilia began to establish her domain in the house. Vincent helped her organize the kitchen so she could find everything by touch. She learned to cook on the unfamiliar stove and was pleased when Vincent praised her meals. "This is the best apple pie I've had since my mother's," he declared one evening, taking a second helping. Cecilia beamed. "The apples are from that tree behind the house, aren't they? They have a distinct tartness. You can tell that just by taste." Vincent sounded impressed. "My other senses compensate," she explained. "I notice things others might miss." "Like what?" he asked, genuinely curious. "Well, I can tell you got a new horse recently. When you come in from the stables, there's a different smell mixed with the usual leather and hay." Vincent chuckled. "You're right. Bought a mare last week from Jim Collins. She's a fine horse, but she's still getting used to me." And Cecilia continued with a small smile, I can tell when you've been to town because you always smell of tobacco afterward, even though you don't smoke. The general store, Vincent acknowledged. Old man Jenkins smokes a pipe all day. Can't escape the smell in there. These small revelations brought them closer, building a foundation of understanding between them. Cecilia found herself listening for Vincent's return each day, looking forward to his stories and descriptions. One evening in late June, a fierce thunderstorm rolled in. The wind howled around the house, and rain lashed against the windows. Cecilia sat in the parlor, her fingers working on the knitting Mrs. Holloway had taught her, when a particularly loud crack of thunder made her jump. Just a storm, Vincent reassured her from his chair by the fireplace. Though it's a bad one. I've always been afraid of storms, Cecilia admitted. Even before I lost my sight, something about the chaos of it. Another crack of thunder closer this time was followed by a strange crashing sound outside. Vincent stood quickly. That sounded like it hit something. I'd better check. Be careful, Cecilia called as he pulled on his coat and went outside. He returned minutes later, dripping wet. Lightning struck the old oak by the barn, he reported grimly. Split it right down the middle. Part of it fell on the barn roof. I need to secure things before more damage is done. Let me help, Cecilia said, setting aside her knitting. No, it's too dangerous out there, Vincent protested. You stay inside where it's safe. Vincent, she said firmly, I may be blind, but I'm not useless. Tell me what to do and I'll do it. He was silent for a moment, then sighed. All right, but you stay close to me. They ventured into the storm together, Vincent describing each step as they went. The rain soaked them immediately, and the wind nearly knocked Cecilia off her feet, but Vincent's strong arm kept her steady. At the barn, he instructed her to hold the lantern while he climbed onto the roof to secure a loose section of wood. Though she couldn't see to direct the light, holding it steady gave Vincent enough illumination to work by. Hand me that rope, he called down, and Cecilia felt along the barn wall where he'd said the ropes were kept. Together, they managed to temporarily repair the roof and ensure the horses were calm and secure. By the time they returned to the house, they were both drenched and exhausted, but there was a new energy between them. We make a good team, Vincent said as he stoked the fire higher to help them dry off. We do, Cecilia agreed, wringing out her hair. Thank you for letting me help. I should be thanking you, he replied. I couldn't have managed as quickly on my own. That night, as the storm continued to rage outside, Cecilia lay awake listening to the rain on the roof. A soft knock at her door startled her. Cecilia, Vincent called softly. Are you awake? Yes, she answered, sitting up. Is something wrong? The door creaked open. The roof in the guest room is leaking, he explained. Right onto the bed. Oh, she said, understanding the situation. You can sleep here. The bed is large enough. There was a pause. I'll take the floor, he offered. Don't be silly, she said firmly. We're married, Vincent, and it's just sleep. She heard him approach cautiously and felt the mattress dip as he sat on the edge of the bed. Are you sure? He asked. I'm sure. Vincent slipped under the covers, careful to maintain space between them. But as the night wore on and the storm gradually subsided, Cecilia found herself gravitating toward his warmth. By morning, she woke to find herself nestled against his side, his arm draped protectively around her. For a moment she lay still, savoring the unfamiliar but pleasant sensation of being held. Then Vincent stirred, and she felt him tense as he realized their position. Good morning, she said softly before he could move away. Morning, he replied, his voice rough with sleep. I'm sorry if I don't apologize, she interrupted. It was nice. Vincent was quiet, but his arm remained around her. Yes, he finally said. It was. After that night, their relationship shifted subtly. Vincent continued to sleep in the guest room he'd fixed the leak the next day, but there was a new ease between them, a gentle intimacy in their interactions. July brought intense heat to the valley. Vincent worked from dawn until the worst heat of the day, then came in for a late lunch before returning to his chores in the evening when it cooled. Cecilia learned to time her household tasks accordingly, doing the baking and heavy cleaning in the early morning hours. One particularly hot afternoon, Vincent came in for lunch looking utterly exhausted. "The creek's running low," he reported worriedly. "If this heat keeps up, we might have trouble with the water supply." "Is there anything we can do?" Cecilia asked as she set a glass of cool water before him. "Pray for rain," he said with a sigh. "And I'll ride out to check the upper creek tomorrow, see if there's a blockage." That evening, as they sat on the porch hoping for a breeze, Vincent suddenly took Cecilia's hand. "There's something I've been wanting to show you," he said. "Or rather, to help you experience." "What is it?" she asked, curious. "The sunset. It's particularly beautiful tonight." He led her to the edge of the porch and positioned himself behind her, his hands lightly on her shoulders. "The sun is low now, just above the western hills," he began, his voice close to her ear. "It's a deep orange gold and it's casting long shadows across the valley. The clouds around it have turned pink and purple, like they've caught fire." As he spoke, his hands gently moved from her shoulders down her arms, almost as if he were painting the scene on her skin. As it sinks lower, the colors deepen. The sky directly overhead is still blue, but it's darkening to indigo. And where the sun touches the hills, there's a line of brilliant gold light, like the edge of the world is glowing. Cecilia closed her eyes, not that it made a difference to her vision, but somehow it helped her focus on Vincent's words, on the warmth of his presence behind her, on the image he was creating for her. "Now it's disappearing behind the hills," he continued, his voice softer. "Just the last sliver of gold, and then—" His hands stilled on her arms. "It's gone. But the light remains in the sky for a while, all those colors slowly fading to deep blue and then to black." Cecilia leaned back slightly, and Vincent's arms tentatively encircled her waist. They stood like that, silent in the gathering dusk until the first stars appeared. "Thank you," she whispered eventually. Vincent turned her gently to face him. "For what?" "For sharing your sight with me. For describing things so I can see them through your eyes." She felt his hand rise to cup her cheek. "Cecilia," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I never expected. When I sent away for a bride, I thought I'd find a practical woman who could help with the ranch. I never thought I'd find someone who would make me see the world differently." "Is that what I've done?" she asked softly. "Yes," he replied simply. "Since you've been here, I've noticed things I never paid attention to before: the different songs of the birds, the way the air smells before it rains, the texture of the soil in the garden. I see it all differently because I'm seeing it for you." Cecilia's heart swelled. She reached up, her fingers finding his face, tracing the contours of his cheeks, his strong jaw, the curve of his lips. "I want to see you," she explained as her fingertips explored. "In my way." Vincent stood perfectly still, allowing her this intimate exploration. She felt the roughness of stubble, the small scar near his right eyebrow, the laugh lines at the corners of his eyes. "You're smiling," she observed, her fingers detecting the upward curve of his mouth. "I am," he confirmed. "Because I'm happy, Cecilia. Happier than I've been in a very long time." She lowered her hand, but Vincent caught it and pressed a kiss to her palm. The tender gesture made her breath catch. "May I kiss you?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," she breathed. His lips found hers in a kiss far different from the brief one they'd shared at their wedding. This was gentle but searching, a question and an answer all at once. Cecilia's arms wound around his neck as she responded, her heart racing with a joy she hadn't expected to find in this arranged marriage. When they finally parted, Vincent rested his forehead against hers. "I think I'm falling in love with you, Cecilia Forester." The words washed over her like a warm rain, seeping into places in her heart that had been dry for too long. "And I with you, Vincent Forester." That night, Vincent moved his belongings into the master bedroom. As husband and wife in more than just name, they discovered each other with tender patience. Vincent always mindful of Cecilia's comfort, Cecilia trusting in his gentle guidance. Later, as they lay together in the darkness that was no different to Cecilia than the day, Vincent drew her close against his side. "Tell me something about the stars," she requested drowsily. "The stars," he mused. "Well, tonight they're particularly bright. There's a whole swath of them across the sky, the Milky Way, like a river of light, and there's one star that always points north. The North Star, they call it. Sailors use it to navigate. What does it look like? It's not the brightest star, but it's steady, reliable. It doesn't flicker like some of the others. It just shines constant, showing the way." "Like you," Cecilia murmured, already half asleep. Vincent pressed a kiss to her hair. "Like us," he corrected gently. "We'll be each other's North Star." The heat wave broke in early August with a gentle, soaking rain that lasted 3 days. The creek rose again, and the parched earth drank deeply. When the clouds finally cleared, the ranch seemed to have been reborn, greener, fresher, teeming with renewed life. Vincent and Cecilia settled into a rhythm together, each learning the other's habits and preferences. They worked side by side when possible, Vincent teaching Cecilia about the ranch, Cecilia sharing her knowledge of herbs and cooking. In the evenings, they often sat on the porch while Vincent described the changing light, the movements of the cattle in the distance, the flight of birds across the vast sky. One morning in late August, Cecilia woke feeling slightly ill. She dismissed it as something she'd eaten, but when the sensation returned the next day and the next, she began to wonder. "Are you all right?" Vincent asked over breakfast, noticing she'd barely touched her food. "You're looking pale." "I'm just a little queasy," she admitted. "It seems to pass by midday." Vincent was quiet for a moment. "Cecilia," he said carefully, "could you be? That is, might you be with child?" The possibility hadn't occurred to her, but as soon as he spoke it, she knew it was likely true. I think I might be," she replied, a mixture of wonder and apprehension in her voice. Vincent's chair scraped back, and suddenly he was kneeling beside her, taking her hands in his. "A baby," he said, awe evident in his tone. "Our baby. You're pleased then?" She asked, though his reaction made the answer obvious. "Pleased," he laughed, a sound of pure joy. "Cecilia, I'm elated. A family of our own, it's more than I dared hope for so soon." But as his initial excitement settled, Vincent grew concerned. "You'll need to see the doctor in town to be certain, and we should make things easier around here for you. I'll hire some help for the heavy work." Cecilia squeezed his hands. "I'm pregnant, Vincent, not invalid. Women have been having babies since the beginning of time, many of them while working much harder than I do. But not all women are my wife," he countered gently, "and I want to take care of you both." Dr. Mitchell in Granite confirmed their suspicion the following week. "Congratulations, Mrs. Forester," he said. "I'd say you're about 6 weeks along. The baby should arrive late March or early April." As they rode home from town, Vincent couldn't contain his excitement. He made plans: a proper cradle, a rocking chair for the nursery, improvements to the house before winter set in. "We'll need to order things from Denver," he said. "Proper baby clothes and such, and maybe Mrs. Holloway can help with the sewing." Cecilia listened, amused and touched by his enthusiasm. "Vincent," she finally interrupted. "We have months to prepare. Let's take it one step at a time." He laughed a bit sheepishly. "You're right, of course, it's just I never thought I'd have this. A wife, a child on the way. For years it was just me and the cattle and the endless work. And now I have something to work for," he said simply. September brought cooler weather and the beginning of the fall roundup. Vincent hired 2 young men from town to help with the cattle, which gave him more time to make improvements to the house before winter. One evening, as Cecilia sat on the porch shelling peas, she heard an unfamiliar wagon approaching. Vincent had gone to help a neighboring rancher with a difficult calving, so she was alone. "Hello," she called, setting aside her work and standing. "Who's there, Mrs. Forester?" A woman's voice replied. "It's Clara Thompson, the sheriff's wife. I hope you don't mind the unexpected visit." "Not at all," Cecilia said, relieved. "Please come up to the porch." She heard footsteps on the wooden steps, and then a warm hand clasped hers. "It's good to see you again," Clara said kindly. "I've been meaning to call on you since the wedding, but with 5 children to tend to, I rarely get away." "I understand," Cecilia smiled. "Would you like some tea? That would be lovely." As they sat in the kitchen with their tea, Clara explained her visit. "The town is organizing a harvest festival for next month, and I'm heading the committee. We'd love to have you participate." "Me?" Cecilia was surprised. "What could I do?" "Well, Mrs. Holloway mentioned you're a fine baker. We need contributions for the baking contest. And there's the quilting circle, we're making a community quilt to raffle off." "I can bake," Cecilia agreed, "but I'm afraid quilting might be difficult for me." "Nonsense," Clara said firmly. "Many of the older women sew by feel more than sight these days. You'd be welcome to join us." By the time Vincent returned, Cecilia had agreed not only to bake for the festival but also to attend the quilting circle the following week in town. Clara Thompson came by. Vincent asked as they prepared for bed. "Sheriff's wife?" "Yes, she was very kind. She's arranging for me to have a ride to town for the quilting circle." Vincent was quiet for a moment. "Do you want to go?" "I do," Cecilia admitted. "I've been happy here with you, Vincent, but I miss female company sometimes. The chance to make friends in town appeals to me." "Then you should go," he said, coming to sit beside her on the bed. "I want you to be happy here, Cecilia, not just with me but with our life in Granite." She leaned into him, grateful for his understanding. "I am happy. Happier than I ever expected to be." The quilting circle proved to be exactly what Cecilia needed. The women of Granite welcomed her warmly, impressed by her ability to sew neat, even stitches despite her blindness. They included her in their conversations, asked about the baby, and shared advice about surviving winters in Colorado. "The snow can get mighty deep out your way," Mrs. Jenkins, the general store owner's wife, warned. "Make sure Vincent lays in plenty of firewood." "And dried fruits for when you can't get fresh," added another woman. "Helps ward off winter ailments." As autumn deepened, Vincent worked tirelessly to prepare the ranch for winter. He repaired the roof, sealed gaps in the walls, and built a woodshed close to the house that he filled with split logs. He also expanded the root cellar, where Cecilia stored the vegetables from their now thriving garden along with preserves she'd prepared. The Harvest Festival in mid-October was a joyous affair. The entire town gathered in the meadow behind the church, bringing food, music, and games. Vincent stayed close to Cecilia, describing the activities and guiding her through the crowd, but he also encouraged her to spend time with the women she'd met at the quilting circle. "Your apple pie won first prize," Clara Thompson announced, rushing up to Cecilia with the blue ribbon. The judge said it was the perfect balance of sweet and tart. Cecilia beamed with pride as Vincent squeezed her shoulder. "I knew it would win," he said. No one bakes like my wife. The warm glow of community carried them through the first snowfall in early November. Vincent had installed a bell on the porch that he rang when returning from the barn or pasture in bad weather, so Cecilia could hear him coming through the muffling snow. As winter settled fully over the ranch, they spent long evenings by the fire. Vincent read aloud from books he'd ordered from Denver, novels, poetry, and newspapers, to keep them connected to the wider world. Cecilia worked on baby clothes, her fingers deftly creating tiny garments as she listened to his deep voice bring stories to life. One night in December, as a particularly fierce blizzard howled outside, Vincent paused in his reading. "Cecilia," he said thoughtfully, "have you ever considered learning to read again?" "Read," she repeated, surprised. "How could I?" "There's a system," he explained, setting the book aside and coming to sit next to her. "I read about it in one of the newspapers from Denver. A Frenchman invented it, raised dots on paper that you can feel with your fingers. It's called Braille." "I've heard of it," Cecilia admitted. "But I never had the opportunity to learn." "I could inquire about it," Vincent offered. "Perhaps there are books available, or someone who could teach you." The thought of being able to read again, to access stories and knowledge independently, filled Cecilia with longing. "I would like that very much," she said softly. Vincent wrapped an arm around her, his hand coming to rest on her growing belly. "Then I'll make it happen." The baby chose that moment to kick vigorously, and Vincent laughed in delight. "Strong like his mother," he said proudly. "Or her father," Cecilia countered with a smile. "Boy or girl, it doesn't matter to me," Vincent said earnestly. "Just healthy and happy." Christmas brought another blizzard, forcing them to cancel their plans to attend services in town. Instead, they celebrated quietly at home. Vincent had secretly ordered gifts from Denver, a silver hairbrush with matching hand mirror for Cecilia. "I know you can't see your reflection," he'd said when she opened it, "but I thought you might like the feel of it, and it's something fine for a lady," and a small music box that played a gentle lullaby. "For the baby," he explained as the tinkling notes filled the room, "and for you when you're rocking our child to sleep." Cecilia had made him a scarf, knitted from the softest wool she could find, and a new journal bound in leather. "Mrs. Holloway helped me find the right kind," she said as he ran his hands over the supple cover. "You mentioned your old one was nearly full." "It's perfect," he assured her. "I've been keeping a record of our life together. Someday, our child might want to read about how their parents met and fell in love." "Fell in love through letters, sight unseen," Cecilia mused. "It's rather romantic, isn't it?" "More romantic than I ever thought my life would be," Vincent agreed, drawing her close. "Thank you for answering my advertisement, Cecilia Porter Forester." "Thank you for accepting a blind bride, Vincent Forester." January 1879 was bitterly cold, with snow piling higher than Vincent had ever seen. He had to dig paths from the house to the barn each morning, and the cattle required extra feed and care to survive the harsh conditions. Cecilia's pregnancy advanced, her belly growing rounder as the baby within became increasingly active. Dr. Mitchell made a difficult journey to the ranch in late January to check on her, pronouncing both mother and child healthy despite the challenging winter. "The baby's positioned correctly," he assured them. "Everything looks to be progressing normally. I'd say you've got about 8 weeks to go, Mrs. Forester." After the doctor left, Vincent fretted about the possibility of Cecilia going into labor during a blizzard. "Perhaps you should stay in town for the last few weeks," he suggested, "at Mrs. Holloway's, where you'd be closer to the doctor." "And farther from you," Cecilia pointed out. "No, Vincent. I want our child to be born in our home with you nearby." "But what if something goes wrong? What if I can't get the doctor in time?" "Then we'll manage," she said firmly. Women have been giving birth without doctors for centuries. Clara Thompson has agreed to come when my time arrives. She's helped deliver dozens of babies, and I trust you to take care of us." Her faith in him was humbling. Vincent redoubled his preparations, making sure the path to town was as clear as possible and arranging with Sheriff Thompson to send a rider for the doctor at the first sign of labor. February brought slightly milder weather, with days of sunshine between snowfalls. Vincent took advantage of these breaks to ride into town for supplies and to check on the promised Braille materials he'd inquired about. "Nothing yet," the postmaster reported, "but the trains have been delayed by the snow. Could be a while before it gets here from Denver." Despite the disappointment, Vincent returned to the ranch with good news. "The general store got in some fine flannel for baby blankets," he told Cecilia. "And Mrs. Jenkins sent along a jar of her blackberry preserve, said it was good for strengthening the blood before childbirth." As March approached, Cecilia's discomfort increased. Her back ached constantly, and she found it difficult to sleep. Vincent massaged her shoulders and feet each night, his strong hands gentle on her tired body. "Tell me what the ranch looks like now," she requested one evening as they sat by the fire. With all the snow, Vincent considered before answering. "It's like a different world." Everything is white, of course, but not just one white. There are shadows of blue and gray in the drifts, and when the sun hits the snow just right, it sparkles like 1,000 tiny diamonds. The creek is mostly frozen, but there are places where the water still runs, creating windows of black among the white banks. "And the house, how does it look from outside?" "Like a painting," he said thoughtfully. "The white walls blend with the snow, but the red roof stands out sharply. Smoke rises from the chimney in a straight column when the air is still, or gets whipped away in curls when the wind blows. At night the light from our windows makes golden squares on the snow. It looks warm, inviting." "Like a home," Cecilia murmured. "Yes," Vincent agreed, "our home." 2 days later, in the early hours of the morning, Cecilia woke with a sharp pain in her lower back. At first, she thought it was just the usual discomfort, but when it returned with increasing intensity, she realized what was happening. "Vincent," she nudged her sleeping husband. "Vincent, wake up." He was instantly alert. "What is it? Is it time?" "I think so," she confirmed as another contraction gripped her. "The pains have started." Vincent leapt from bed, pulling on his clothes with fumbling haste. "I'll go for Clara and send someone for the doctor," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Will you be all right for a short while?" "Yes," Cecilia assured him, though another pain was building. "But hurry." He pressed a quick kiss to her forehead. "I'll be as fast as I can." "Everything's going to be fine." After Vincent left, Cecilia carefully got out of bed and moved around the room, finding that walking eased the pain somewhat. She counted the minutes between contractions as Mrs. Thompson had taught her, noting that they were still relatively far apart. There was time yet. The sound of horses and a wagon arriving came sooner than she expected. Clara Thompson bustled in, bringing with her the comforting scent of lavender and the confident presence of a woman who knew exactly what to do. "Well now, Mrs. Forester," she said cheerfully, taking Cecilia's arm. "Let's get you comfortable and see how things are progressing." Vincent paced in the kitchen as Clara examined Cecilia in the bedroom. When she emerged, her expression was reassuring. "Everything's proceeding normally," she reported. "The baby's in the right position and Cecilia is strong. It will be some hours yet, though. I've sent my oldest boy for the doctor, but honestly, I don't think we'll need him." "What can I do?" Vincent asked anxiously. "Keep the fire going and water boiling," Clara instructed. "And perhaps make some tea for your wife. This could be a long day." The labor progressed steadily throughout the morning and into the afternoon. Cecilia faced each contraction with determination, squeezing Vincent's hand when he was allowed in the room, focusing on his voice as he spoke encouragement to her. "You're doing wonderfully," he told her, wiping her brow with a cool cloth. "Just a little longer." "Tell me about the baby's room again," she requested between contractions. "Distract me." Vincent described the nursery they had prepared, the cradle he had built with his own hands, the soft blankets folded and waiting, the small shelf that held the few toys they had acquired, including a wooden horse he had carved during the long winter evenings. "And there's a window that faces east," he continued, "so the morning sun will warm the room. I hung curtains that Clara helped me select there, a soft yellow, like the first spring flowers." As the sun began to set, Cecilia's labor intensified. Clara shooed Vincent from the room as the final stage approached, but Cecilia called him back. "I want him with me," she insisted through gritted teeth. "Very well," Clara agreed. "Vincent, sit behind her and support her back. She'll need to push soon." Vincent did as instructed, cradling Cecilia against his chest as she bore down with each contraction. He murmured constant encouragement, his voice steady even as his heart raced with fear and anticipation. "I can see the head," Clara announced at last. "One more big push, Cecilia." With a final, tremendous effort, Cecilia pushed their child into the world. A cry strong and indignant filled the room, and Vincent felt tears spring to his eyes. "A boy," Clara declared, quickly wrapping the infant in a warm blanket. "A fine, healthy son." She placed the baby in Cecilia's eager arms. Cecilia's fingers trembled as they explored her son's face, feeling the tiny nose, the perfect bow of his lips, the surprising amount of hair on his head. "Vincent," she whispered, "describe him to me. Tell me what our son looks like." Vincent gazed down at the small, red face, overwhelmed with love. "He's beautiful," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "He has your nose, I think, and my chin. His hair is dark like mine, but there's a lot of it, and his eyes." Vincent paused as the baby opened his eyes briefly. "They're blue right now, like all babies, I suppose, but I think they might stay that way. You're blue." Cecilia smiled through her tears. "What else? Tell me everything." "His fingers are so tiny, but he's got a strong grip. He's holding onto my finger right now. And he's perfect, Cecilia." "Absolutely perfect." Clara quietly cleaned up and then slipped from the room, giving the new family time alone together. "What shall we name him?" Cecilia asked, cradling their son against her heart. Vincent considered. "What about Thomas, after your father?" "Thomas Vincent Forester," Cecilia tried the name. "It suits him." "Welcome to the world, Thomas," Vincent said softly, placing a gentle kiss on his son's forehead. Then he kissed Cecilia, pouring all his love and gratitude into the gesture. "Thank you," he whispered against her lips. "Thank you for our son, for our family." Dr. Mitchell arrived the next morning, having been delayed by a difficult crossing at the creek. He examined both mother and baby, pronouncing them in excellent health. "You did well, Mrs. Forester," he commended Cecilia. "And you too, Clara." "Couldn't have done better myself." News of Thomas's birth spread quickly through Granite. Over the next few weeks, visitors made the journey to the Forester ranch, bringing gifts and good wishes. Mrs. Holloway brought a beautiful quilt she had made specially for the baby. Sheriff Thompson delivered a rocking horse his deputy had crafted. Even Old Man Jenkins from the general store came out, bringing a silver cup engraved with Thomas's name and birth date. "It's tradition," he explained gruffly when Vincent tried to thank him. "Done it for every baby born in Granite since I took over the store from my pa." Spring arrived properly in April, melting the snow and bringing new life to the ranch. Vincent planted an apple tree behind the house to commemorate Thomas's birth, promising that it would bear fruit by the time the boy was old enough to climb it. One bright morning, as Cecilia sat on the porch nursing Thomas, the sound of a wagon approaching caught her attention. "Vincent," she called, knowing he was repairing a fence nearby. "I'm here," he answered, his footsteps crossing the yard. "It's the mail wagon. Unusual, they don't usually come all the way out to the ranch." The driver pulled up and called a greeting. "Special delivery for Mrs. Forester," he announced. "Had to sign for it myself in Denver. Came all the way from the East Coast, it did." Vincent accepted the package, a large wooden crate, and thanked the driver. "What is it?" Cecilia asked curiously as Vincent carried it onto the porch. "Not sure," he replied, using a tool to pry open the lid. "But there's a letter on top." He unfolded the paper and began to read. "Dear Mrs. Forester, in response to your husband's inquiry about materials for the blind, we are pleased to send you this comprehensive set of Braille learning materials." Vincent's voice filled with excitement as he continued reading. "It's from a school for the blind in Boston, Cecilia. They've sent books, writing equipment, everything you need to learn Braille." Cecilia's free hand flew to her mouth. "You really did it," she whispered. "You found a way for me to read again." "I promised I would," Vincent said simply, kneeling beside her chair. "It took longer than I hoped, but now you can learn, and someday you can teach Thomas too." Cecilia reached out, finding his face with her fingertips. "I love you, Vincent Forester," she said, her voice full of emotion. "More than I have words to express." "Then we'd better get you learning these new words," he teased gently, turning his head to kiss her palm. "Because I plan to give you reasons to love me for the rest of our lives." As spring deepened into summer, life at the Forester Ranch settled into a new rhythm. Thomas grew stronger each day, his personality emerging in gummy smiles and curious hands. Cecilia devoted time each day to her Braille lessons, her quick mind and sensitive fingers making rapid progress. And Vincent found a deeper purpose in his work, knowing he was building not just a ranch but a legacy for his son. One evening in late June, almost exactly a year after Cecilia had first arrived in Granite, they sat together on the porch. Thomas slept peacefully in his basket nearby, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of wildflowers from the meadow. "The sunset is beautiful tonight," Vincent said, his arm around Cecilia's shoulders. "The clouds are rimmed with gold, and there's a shade of purple I've never seen before, deep, like the inside of a plum." "You've become quite the poet," Cecilia teased, leaning into his embrace. "I've become a man who sees," he replied. "You taught me that, Cecilia. To really see the world, not just look at it." She turned her face up to his. "And you taught me that I didn't need eyes to experience beauty. You gave me the world through your words." Vincent kissed her softly. "We gave each other what we needed most," he murmured against her lips. "You gave me a family, a purpose beyond just surviving. And you gave me a home," Cecilia finished for him. "A place where my blindness doesn't define me." Thomas stirred in his basket, making the small snuffling sounds that preceded waking. Vincent reached over to rock the basket gently. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "Answering my advertisement, coming to a place you'd never seen, to marry a man you'd never met." Cecilia smiled, her face radiant in the fading light. "Never," she said with absolute certainty. "This is exactly where I'm meant to be, with you. With our son. This is home." "Then I'll keep describing the world to you," Vincent promised. "Every sunset, every sunrise, every change of season, for all the days of our lives. And I'll keep showing you how to truly see it," Cecilia replied, taking his hand and placing it over her heart. "With more than just your eyes." As darkness fell over the ranch, they remained on the porch, talking softly so as not to wake their son. Vincent described the emerging stars, and Cecilia named the night birds by their calls. Together they created a world of shared perception, he giving her his sight, she giving him her deeper awareness, building a life rich with love and understanding in the vast, wild beauty of their Colorado home.